Good morning and welcome to episode 7 of Radio Tiny House. My name is Barry Smith.
And Beth Smith here.
And we are actually married and enjoy doing this podcast together. It's actually one of the most fun things we can do that we can actually, talk about on the air.
Well, I can think of other things, but that's okay, right?
Well, we won't talk about that on the air,
No.
And just wanted to say hi. It's a cool, crisp morning here. Finally, we've got some nice fall weather. I'm sure that will last about 3 days before it gets back up into the 70s or 80s.
Hallelujah.
That's just kind of the way it is here in the South. Even in the mountains, it gets warm in the fall.
Yes, it does.
So welcome. We're excited to be here. We took a week off. We went to the beach.
Yes.
A much
Thank
needed
God I needed to go.
Vacation.
I didn't spend enough time in the sand, so I might wake up one day and head to the beach, and Barry won't even know.
I'll know because I'll probably be with you because I enjoy the beach. That's my favorite place.
Well, luckily where we live, we are about 5 hours from the beach, so honestly, we could get up in the morning and be at the beach by 10 if I could get us moving that early.
And if I felt like it, we could get up early in the morning, drive to the beach, spend the day, and then drive back at night. But yeah. I think that may have happened, those days were like 18, 19, 20 years old when we used to drive from Marietta, where Beth lived at the time, up to Chattanooga, Tennessee to go to Krispy Kreme donuts just because we wanted to be together.
Well, no, it was in the middle of the night. What do you do?
Well,
we didn't have 24-hour things then, so
that's right.
We're dating ourselves.
But the Krispy Kreme in Atlanta was 24 hours at the time.
Yeah, that didn't matter.
So
we wanted to go to Chattanooga.
No, we just wanted to be
together. It's just
together.
a drive. And the other thing that's great is, so we'll talk about a little bit in the lessons from the beach, but we found the most adorable hotel down there.
We did.
That is really reasonable, and if we decided, and they're not busy right now because it's the winter, right? But if the day is nice and we decide we want to go down there, we can spend the night.
That's
easily.
Right. And
inexpensively.
It's inexpensive. It's not $900 a night at the beach like some places that you'd go to Destin or someplace like that. Tybee is a relatively undeveloped beach. It's not like Daytona or Panama City or Destin or any place like that. There are no high-rises. They're all, the majority of the hotels and motels are all mom-and-pop things. There's a couple of chains. There's an old Savannah hotel there, the DeSoto.
Yeah, I think, 2 stories is all they'll allow?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But we'll talk about that more. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes, we are getting ahead of ourselves. So, good morning again. Today we'd like to talk a little bit about, we've got some stuff going on with Radio Tiny House that we're excited about. We, of course, have our podcast, which is, I love doing it. Of course, I'm an audio geek. But we also have a new YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm working madly and feverishly on getting our first 2 videos edited. First one is going to be on our house that we talked about before, went viral, and so I'm going to just kind of do an overview of that, and we'll put that on the channel. That'll kind of be our first one. And then we're going to do some video of the beach and the tiny houses we found at the beach. And some that really surprised us on the way back from the beach. We probably should talk about that too.
Yes, yes.
So we want to be able to, the big reason that we do this is that we want to be able to further reasonably priced living for people. And people go, how in the world did you do what we did? We didn't know we were on the cutting edge when we did it. We just knew that this was a cost saver and time saver for us when we built our shed home. And so, yeah, that's what we're trying to help others figure out how to do.
Right, and we want to be advocates, if you will, for tiny houses and shed homes.
Yep.
Because it's a very affordable way for people to get out of the suburbs or even the cities to buy a piece of land where you can that will allow tiny houses or shed homes. And there are more and more of those around, by the way. And to live a lifestyle where you're not so tied to a commute or tied to being, having to travel all the time or a huge mortgage. That's right.
Right.
So for us, I mean, we did it to be mortgage free. We didn't really start out with the idea of becoming advocates for anything. We wanted to do it for our lifestyle.
Right. So our goal was mortgage free. We ended up with 2 houses. That was a surprise. We had planned to do that eventually, but because we wanted to build a family commune. But Yeah, so now we have 2 houses, but the other thing is
Now we have an animal commune.
well, we have 2 houses and this shed that we're in doing our podcast. But here's the thing. We had to move 65 miles from the city to do this. So not only are we advocating for people to be able to live tiny in rural areas, and there are so many laws and so many codes about that, we're also advocating for people to be able to live tiny in cities where
That's right.
there's infrastructure and restaurants and Wi-Fi.
Because, Wi-Fi. That's a big thing, especially in rural areas.
Right. I was on a podcast yesterday, and we were talking about the Wi-Fi thing, and I said Elon Musk is either going to be our savior or he's going to kill us all
Right.
with Earthlink.
I'm going for savior. It's a good tech.
I hope.
And I'm fascinated with almost everything Elon Musk does. I really want the batteries
Except
to come
for
out
his
for
baby's
houses.
name is a little odd. I can't even pronounce it.
Well, no.
Yeah,
It's
can't pronounce it.
like a series of letters and numbers
Yeah,
or
I don't even know how to
something like
pronounce
that. I don't know. It sounds like something you'd name an android, but I don't want to. That's what they wanted to do. So,
yeah, hey, it's a free country.
so
and
that's
hey,
cool.
he's Elon Musk. He can do whatever the heck he wants to do.
That's exactly right. So, also, we don't edit our podcast, so you may hear occasionally like me squeezing a water bottle, putting down a coffee cup.
Occasionally my heater might come on if I'm freezing to death. Although he probably won't let me do that.
No, the heater can't be on right now. That's too much background noise.
Right.
Us giggling about something occasionally. So we try to do the podcast as much live as we can. I edit in music at the end and the beginning, and that's about it.
This is it.
This is it.
This is us. Like it's live, and that's how it's gonna go.
So, YouTube channel, it'll be we're aiming for our first video to be up tomorrow, let's say. Today's Tuesday, November 3rd.
No, probably I'm going to say Friday.
Okay,
it takes a long time to do these. These YouTubers who do one every day, well, obviously they're sending it out to somebody else to edit it because it takes forever. I'm pretty efficient at it. I mean, I've done not a lot, I've done some. But it just takes a long time. There's a lot of little ticky things you have to do. So we're getting that done, but we'll try to get our first one up, I'll tell you what, I'll make a deadline of next week. We'll be able to actually announce that it's up.
Okay.
How's that? Fair enough.
So
that gives me the weekend.
So we can't talk about this again next week.
I know.
Except for to say,
well, it's hard.
Hey, our video's up.
Exactly.
We can't
That's all we're gonna say.
we
it's
got
coming.
one more week. So
No,
yeah.
coming.
So the other thing is that I always try to include something about questions that we get asked, and we get a lot of questions on Facebook in our group, on our Facebook page, which is My Tuff Shed Home. That's just a page. The group is Tiny Houses Shed Homes.
Right. We're not currently running a website for that. We have my website, BethWSmith.com. We've got Radio Tiny House websites. That's enough websites for 2 people to keep up with. So if you want to find us on Facebook, that's where we are.
I own about 30 domains. But we only have 2 websites. So.
Oh well, onward.
That's okay. So probably the biggest question that we get asked,
always.
Well, maybe the top 2, one is, where can I just build this on a piece of property?
And the answer is no.
No, not until you find out if you can. But the other one is cost. Everybody wants to know what our house cost to build, and that's always a tricky thing because we can tell you exactly how much it cost, but to duplicate what we have is not going to cost you the same.
No.
It's probably going to cost you a lot more right now because of the cost of lumber has gone up, the cost of all building supplies have gone up. Taxes have gone up. I mean, everything related to building a house has gone up.
Yep.
And the base price of of our Tuff Shed home has gone up somewhat, but not as much as other costs have gone up.
Right. Well, the advantage to using a shed builder is that they have probably pre-purchased lumber. They're flying off the shelves, if you would use that analogy for sheds, but they pre-purchase lumber. They can usually do a lot better than you can at Home Depot, although there are discounts and whatever if you go to your lumber yard. But we know that costs, we talked about this before, costs have skyrocketed. So I finally have an answer to how much will it cost me. You want me to give my rule of thumb?
How much will it cost me to build a house exactly like you've built?
Right. So whatever you spend for the outside of your house, like if it's I'm doing easy math.
Okay.
All right. If it's $10,000 for your shed,
Okay.
you got to figure the inside's going to cost about $10,000 if you do all the work yourself. Right? So you're in it for 20. Now, you can finance or rent to own, and there's some problems with rent to own a building, and you need to read your contract, but I can't go into that. But if you want to have helpers like we do, because we don't do things that kill us. We don't crawl on roofs. We don't do electrical. We think plumbing might kill us if we did it wrong.
It
So
could.
We don't do any of that stuff. So if you want to do
It'd be
it,
horrible to go to the bathroom, light a match, and boom.
well, that's another whole problem. Anyway, so if you want to get helpers,
Right.
then you need to add it times 3. So your $10,000 shed would be $30,000, right? Keeping the math really simple.
Right.
But that doesn't include septic well, your infrastructure.
Right. Or foundation.
Foundation. That includes the shed and the stuff you stick on the inside of it, and
Right.
your insulation and your electrical and your plumbing and all that stuff. So you can't just walk up one day and say, hey, I want to have a shed and it's going to cost me $5,000. It's not. Now, there are people that put them in people's backyards and they live in them illegally, or they live in them legally, but most of the time when they're just stuck in somebody's backyard, they're not legal. So you kind of have to be really careful about that. And one day we'll talk about what the county can do to you if you
Right.
decide to live in something illegally, but that's another conversation
And
for
it's
another day.
not a pretty story.
It's not. It's a scary story. So anyway, that's my rule of thumb, and Barry used to try to answer people when they came in on our and whatever. And I'm finally the rule of thumb is this.
Right.
And that's pretty accurate, actually.
It is, and it also, of course, depends again, and we've talked about this before, on your taste, on what you want in your house. If you want marble countertops, or if you just want plywood countertops. Although plywood right now may cost as much as marble.
Well, we have plywood countertops.
We do have plywood countertops, and it's kind of cool. I like it a lot.
I like them. I was going to epoxy them and make them all white and pretty and sparkly and kind of look like whatever. Now, when we put the plywood substrate down, I was like, I don't know. I like this.
Yep.
So we left it.
Sealed it.
Sealed it.
And left
Needs
it.
to be done again.
Yeah, it needs about time after 3 years.
Yeah.
But so from a cost standpoint, I mean, we can tell you exactly. I mean, we can go penny by penny if that's what somebody really wants. But it's not really going to do you any good to have that information because that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Costs have changed significantly especially for lumber. I haven't really looked at wiring and things like that lately, but
It's ridiculously expensive when you go to try to get electrical. When I saw the cost, when I ordered everything the electrician told me because I was going to be in charge of ordering. And, I was shocked at how much electrical parts cost.
Electrical parts.
Electrical
Yeah, so
parts.
if you're Elon Musk and you're building a Tesla in your basement, then it's going to be really expensive.
Yeah. Well, maybe not for him. He's probably got some deal.
Yeah, he does have a deal, I'm sure.
Lots of deals.
With Home Depot.
Yeah, lots of deals.
By the way, we're not sponsored by Home
Anybody.
Depot or Elon Musk.
Or Tuff Shed, although we should. I should hit Tuff Shed up.
We do need
Somebody
to hit
said, you should be
Tuff Shed
talking
up.
to them. They use our house and lots of their advertising, whatever. I'm like, I need to make that call.
Yeah.
But not there yet.
We do. We need to make that call. I think we ought to call IKEA.
And say what?
See, I mean, we've got all their stuff in our house, too. So.
That's true. Well, the crazy thing is, Tuff Shed is so busy right now.
Yep.
I don't think they need me to advertise for them because the shed to home market, I have to say partly maybe because of us and our house going viral, has gone crazy.
It has gone
They are
crazy.
way behind.
They're significantly behind, and people are having to wait for 4
months.
4 months for
So
builds.
I don't know if they want to sponsor me.
I want to sponsor.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, that's the spiel on cost. So double the cost of your outside building if you're doing the work yourself, if you're capable of doing the work yourself. And remember that all this should be inspected by your local building inspectors if you're going to do it yourself. And if you're hiring it out, it's going to cost 3 times as much as the outer shell of your shed. And that also will have to be inspected.
Right, so that's just where you can budget. Clearly, your taste and all your things you pick might change that, but as a place to start, we think that's an easy way to help people understand the cost that they're looking at.
mean, you might want to put 100-year-old oak flooring in your house that's going to cost, $200 per square foot.
Yeah.
Or you might want to put the crap that we put in our house.
Yeah, we hate our floors, but we're going to redo those.
We're not going to get them to be our sponsor.
No. We decided to go with cheap floors, and they look it. And they got wet, and anything that you drop or drip in the kitchen, it just makes it a mess. So that's another conversation. We'll talk about our floors when we replace them and what we're going to do.
Because I think that's something that we need to help people avoid.
Yeah, don't do what we did.
Don't do what we did. Don't go cheap. I mean, that's the one thing I think that we went, we're down to, I think that was the last thing we bought.
Yep.
And we went, because
we're paying out of our
own pocket.
Getting low on cash, so we got some cheap floors, and we pay for it every day.
Big mistake.
Big mistake. But so we have a plan.
Don't follow our floor
Right. Don't
advice.
do what we did.
All right, so that wraps up the cost session. If you do have any questions about cost, you can feel free to send us an email at radiotinyhouse@gmail.com, and we'll answer your questions as best we can. If you've got any comments about the show, make them nice, please. That's always nice.
Yeah, we'd love to have your feedback,
We would like to have your feedback. So the neat thing we're going to talk about today, not that tiny houses and shed homes aren't neat, because it's kind of our lifestyle. I mean, that's how we live every day, is lessons from the beach.
Yep.
Okay, lesson number one for me.
Go to it often.
Go often, yes. There's T-shirts where we live up in many of the shops here that say the mountains are calling and I must go. And for me, it's usually the beach is calling and I must go. I absolutely love the beach.
Yeah,
I love
think
the
that's
mountains.
our first shirt.
Yeah, the beach is calling and I must go. Yeah, I think that's true. My first lesson from the beach this time would be, don't walk on the beach in 50-mile-an-hour winds with blowing sand unless you want 1,000 needles going through your legs.
Yeah. Obviously, when you go to the beach in November, when there's a hurricane out in the Gulf, there's a lot of wind. So,
we were on an Atlantic beach.
That's true, but it still was out there. A couple of the days were amazing, and then one day was overcast and super windy, and we decided we wanted to get video of the waves because they are amazing.
Yeah, the guys were actually surfing. And we don't usually have that on the Atlantic side. But wow, we didn't last too long on the beach. Not that day.
Yeah, so that's not the lesson we were going to talk about, though.
Oh, it's not?
No, you're off topic.
We were going to talk about...
The topic is radio or tiny houses.
Oh!
Not your needles on your legs from the beach.
Needles from hell.
Right. Tiny houses. Get it down track.
All right. So lessons from the beach on tiny houses.
Yes.
So first, where'd we stay?
We stayed in a tiny cottage. First off, we're trying to be very COVID careful because we're still in the middle of a pandemic. If you listen to this 2 years from now, you might not even think about that. But
or 100 years from now.
Yeah. We're trying to be COVID careful. So we stayed in a very secluded cottage, which was weirdly inside. Not weirdly, but I never have seen anything quite like it. You walk into a completely private, fenced-in backyard, and then right up against, which was small, but right up against it, they had built a 350 square foot cottage. So it was sort of a little L-shaped building. It had the kitchen, bathroom on one little part of the L, and then the living room with a loft, if you will, in the main living room. So a bedroom, living room, and loft. The loft they had asked us not to climb up in. Of course I climbed up in there, but I didn't go in there. I just looked.
She did climb the ladder, but she didn't physically get in the loft. Let me just say, for legal purposes,
I did not get in the loft. Anyway, so we loved it. It
was so cute.
It was so cute. We had some, we had to make it ours. I rearranged the furniture because that's who I am. And we're going to do that video on our Tiny Houses, Shed Homes YouTube channel.
Right.
So you'll be able to see that when that comes up. But it was really cute. And so we felt really safe. Had a little microwave, had a coffee pot, had a toaster oven, sink, whatever. So we could cook a fridge. We could cook and, hang out, and because we didn't really want to go inside to any restaurants because we haven't done that since COVID started. Now we, you can have food delivered. We did that. We got pizza the first night, and so whatever. So anyway, we were COVID careful. We went to the beach when it was mostly not really busy, so we really didn't see a lot of people.
Well, it was midweek that we were there. I mean, we were there from Tuesday through Saturday, so
Right.
it was mostly midweek. And there just weren't a whole lot of people on the beach, and
Right.
it was quite nice. It was, on the windy day, there were a few brave souls out, but it was mostly deserted.
Right. But anyway, so lessons from the beach. The tiny house was adorable, and there was enough room in that 350 square feet for two people to live comfortably.
Right.
So I think, we live in 768 square feet, but that's basically like living on our downstairs.
Right, yeah.
And, it was comfortable.
Yeah, it was very comfortable. It was
I wouldn't
really
want to
cute.
have big giant dogs or something, and lots of children living in there with
It
me.
would be hard.
That would be hard.
It may even be hard to have a cat in
No,
there.
you could do the cat. But this cat sand is harder. But I think it'd be hard to have a lot of people and animals in
Right.
350 square feet. But that's just me. There are people who are doing that. Anyway, the other thing that, sorry, I hit the microphone. He'll slap my hands. Because I talk with my hands, I can't help it. Don't do that.
Sorry, that was me.
Yes, it was. I think the biggest lesson that I wanted to take away from the beach, and I talked about this in our tiny home group that we have on Facebook, but the fact that you can take a house, and they have a lot of tiny cottages on the beach that were built in the 30s,
maybe 40s.
Yeah. And they're like concrete block and whatever. And very simple shapes. I mean, really, what is a shed home? Or a tiny house, either way, a tiny house on wheels. They're very simple shapes, right? Like a little pitched roof, and roofs cost a lot of money to do something funky. And when you go into big subdivisions, you see all kinds of very creative roof lines. But when you look at cottages on the beach, what do you see? You see that traditional little peaked roof.
Mm-hmm.
But in Tybee, where we were, which is near Savannah, they have gone crazy with color. And some of them, some of them aren't just like, circus colors. There are a couple of them that are kind of circusy. That's not what I'm advocating for you and your house and, the mountains, let's say. But, details are what makes the difference in a shed home.
Right.
Shutters, overhangs, you don't have to build a giant porch if you can't afford it to start with, but give yourself a cute overhang, maybe with brackets, or paint your door. I mean, one of the things that's happened when our house goes viral, our house is dark gray, but the door is bright aqua, and I think that's what draws people's eyes to it.
That huge pop of color
makes
I think
a big difference.
Now I sound like an art critic. It was very unexpected.
Yes.
But that one pop of that aqua just really sets off the entire house.
Right. So if you're paying attention, like if you want to live in a shed home, all right, you're already kind of being different.
Yes.
Right? But there's a beautiful shed home that a girl I follow on Instagram, hers is totally white. Her floors on her porch are white. Everything is white. And then on the inside, it's got a lot of pallet wood and a lot of dark, warm kind of homey characteristics. But the outside is perfectly white, and it's beautiful. Now, she doesn't have any real shutters or details, but the detail for her is stark white.
Right.
But, ours is dark gray with aqua door. In the beach, we saw a white house with aqua shutters. We saw a yellow house with an aqua door. Of course, here I am talking about aqua. There were coral doors. There were bright blue doors.
There was a front porch that was painted kind of aqua, yellow, and coral.
Right.
I mean, it was lots of colors.
Lots of colors. And sometimes they mixed them together.
Yeah.
But what caught your eye was not the fact that this was a 1920s concrete block building, because, by the way, many of them are that. what caught your eye were the details that they added. And so now they're adding them in as Airbnbs and charging a lot of money for houses that probably cost $2,000 to build a long time ago. So if you're looking at having a shed home, if you start thinking about the details about what can make that look like your home instead of just some shed somebody threw on your property, we have a white shed that we're in right now in the podcast studio. The front half is not yet finished. I'm working on it to convert to homeschooling, guest house,
video studio.
I mean, we're working on making it a big, like a space that we can use as transitional. But the outside is white right now. We're talking about painting it bright red. I've actually bought a gallon of red paint.
Right.
I haven't done that yet, but I'm headed there. It may be red with an aqua door. I don't know yet. And paint's cheap, and if you buy it and you don't like it, you can change it.
Well, that's right. And red with aqua, those are two of Beth's favorite colors.
Right.
And what inspired her with the aqua door was a pair of cowboy boots that I had gotten, well, cowgirl boots, I guess, that I had gotten her several years ago that were brown and aqua and red.
Right, and I need to get them. They're in my closet, and I need to get them out, and we'll.
You should take a picture of them.
I should.
In front of our tiny house.
I should. There you go. All right. So anyway, I think the main thing we wanted to talk about from the beach, except for that you need to go. We are, if the beach is calling and you must go, is the fact that. If you pay attention to the details, your house, your shed house, or your tiny house can be everything that you want it to be. Am I drifting away from my microphone? I didn't think I was.
You need to see there I am. Yeah, there you are.
Sorry. It's hard to talk with my hands and look at you and make sure I stay just the perfect distance from the microphone.
I know. So maybe we should get you a lavalier.
No. I like my microphone. All right. Anyway, onward.
So the cool thing about Tybee, which is, for those who want to know, it's Tybee. And I've been going there most of my life.
This is not a commercial for Tybee.
It's not a commercial for Tybee. We are not sponsored by the Tybee Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Right.
Or maybe Visitors Bureau. I don't think they have big enough space to do conventions there. But, for a long time, the only houses on Tybee were just these small, what we would call tiny houses today. Now, and, as in the 80s, people were buying up lots and building much larger houses on them.
Yeah, there are monster houses.
And there are a lot of monster houses on them that are now built to new hurricane codes because they're all up on piers. But there are so many cute little cottages that I didn't see one. Well, I saw two that were for sale. One that was owned by DeSoto, and then another one that had a real estate sign out front.
Yeah.
But most of them are for rent.
Right, and many of them there's Airbnb. There's several different places that
Right, and there are a number of cottage rental companies on Tybee. But we're not sponsored by Airbnb, but we got our tiny cottage through Airbnb.
Right.
And I do have to say that the owner of the cottage was great. She was very communicative. She was welcoming.
Well, one of the reasons we chose Airbnb, by the way, was that they have new cleanliness standards.
Right.
So I feel like they have a lot of to risk if somebody gets COVID in their thing and starts to complain. So rather than going with another kind of rental cottage, we used Airbnb because we felt like their cleanliness standards would match what we were looking for. Anyway, we're kind of running along.
And the guest, the host, the one thing she told us, or one of the things she told us, was it's a firm bed.
Yeah.
And it was a firm bed, so...
So firm that we went and bought ourselves an egg crate to sleep on. But
yes.
I wasn't going to say that. Well, anyway. All right, so let's talk about our sponsor.
But it was still nice.
Yeah, it was nice.
I enjoyed it. I would go stay there again.
Right.
So the sponsor this week is us.
It's us.
We're paying for it. Well, I guess, not this. We bought all the equipment and everything. But it's to promote our Tiny Houses Shed Homes group on Facebook.
Yeah, so we advocate for this lifestyle and try to help you get there.
Lots of information. We answer your questions.
Yep. We're in it and active in a way. It takes a lot of time. I had no idea how much time people put into Facebook groups.
No, I know. It is incredible. I'll be talking to Beth and she'll be going, wait a minute, let me finish answering this question.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions as people are trying to navigate this very complicated process. By the way, on Black Friday, I am offering a workshop. It's going to be an inexpensive workshop. We'll talk more about that in the group, but I want to help people figure this out. We stumbled our way through it. Didn't have anybody to help us. I was on the researching it all the time, and we kind of lucked out.
We did. And when we went to build, we went and sat in the Planning Commission office and spoke with them and asked questions.
Right. So, but we want to help others do that. And so we're going to be doing a workshop. We're going to be trying to help people figure it out. And if they're stuck, there are people that start the process that get stuck over and over again. So my commitment to them is we're going to help you get unstuck.
Right.
So we're going to be doing that. But if you want to join, we'd love to have you. Yeah, that's us. We're Tiny Houses, Shed Homes on Facebook. And we have My Tuff Shed Home on Facebook. Because that's where we are right now. We're just mainly on Facebook or our websites.
Our websites. We also have, Beth had scheduled for her Facebook Live that she does in the group, Tiny Houses Shed Home. She does a Facebook Live every Sunday evening at 8.
Even when the time changed, so now it's really dark.
Yes, it is really dark. I'm not sure that I like that, but I've never been a big fan of changing time anyway.
Right.
We were going to have, as our guest, she was going to have Scott and his wife, Rhonda from Louisiana, that have what Beth calls the cutest tiny house.
The most beautiful shed home I've seen yet. And I'll put that up against ours. I mean, theirs is a lofted barn, which is like what we're in.
Right.
But it is amazing. Marble countertops, chandeliers. It's amazing.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So we're going to interview him in the group, and he sent me the video now. So we're just going to, I'm putting together a video for the Facebook Live, cool. And he's just going to
So he was going to be
questions
on
about it
this past Sunday.
Right.
And he had a conflict of interest, and so we've changed the date to this Sunday, November 8th. Scott and Rhonda from Louisiana will be talking with Beth about their beautiful
lofted barn that has been through hurricanes
2 or 3
this year. So we'll be talking about that and talking about the safety of living in a shed in Hurricane Alley. And of course our shed has been through. We don't get actual hurricanes; we get leftover hurricanes here, but we've been through 3 or 4. 5 of them, I don't know.
Well, just when we were at the beach, which is kind of weird, we were at the beach where hurricanes happen, and North Georgia got hit by the remnants of it. It was a tropical storm that hit up here. And Zeta, and now there's a new one that is forming in the Gulf. So, we have comments that people will say, oh, don't buy a shed from Home Depot or Lowe's because it'll just blow over in the wind. And I got to tell you,
hadn't gone anywhere.
We never feel the wind.
No, I mean, we don't even hear it.
Even high winds, 65, 75 mile an hour winds, we don't hear. Don't hear rain, which is disappointing because I like rain on a tin roof.
Right, but we did lose power for 38 hours, so I
threw away lots of food.
But anyway, so Barry's got on the list, what would you do different? I think we need to table that.
Yeah, I think so. I think we need to talk about that next week, maybe. Or just do a whole show on what would we do different.
Well, we've already talked about the floor.
Floor, yeah. The floor is like number 1 for me.
Right.
So we'll just table that for next week or a couple of weeks from now.
Yeah. And
we'll just do a whole show on what would we do different.
Yeah.
From planning, from drawing it out. I'd probably actually do real blueprints instead of something on a napkin.
I kind of like my napkin.
Well, I love the napkin. It was very creative. We were sitting down in Starbucks one day, and Beth just drew the plans for the house, and that's what we built from.
That's right. And then we talked a little bit about tiny house weather already because we talked about hurricanes and how that affects tiny houses. I think when you're in a tiny house, weather is so much more important than if you're just living in a subdivision. You don't have to worry about, how am I going to get out? What am I doing if power goes out? What am I doing for if I'm in a tiny house on wheels? How am I going to keep the bottom insulated?
Right.
There's all kinds of things around that. So I think maybe next week, we talked about winterizing.
Right.
But as we get a little closer, maybe we'll touch a little bit more on tiny house weather. I do think the fires in California have abated a little bit. Barry and I quit watching the news because we just can't.
We totally stopped watching the news. But I know there's a fire in Colorado. There was before we left for Tybee. There was also one in Utah last week, and I think the Utah one is under control.
So the great thing about having a tiny house on wheels, which is not us, we mainly did a shed home, is that you can drag your tiny house away from the fire. But what I think is happening now in California is people are trying to get temporary shelter. They're living in RVs in their driveway, and I don't know if California is allowing any sheds-like home living. I need to look that up. Maybe we'll dig into that a little bit. But anyway, I think, just being cognizant of wind, being cognizant of rains, weather, snow loads, all those things are really key when you're living in maybe a shed or a little different house.
Right, yeah, and it's, you have to look at things like, don't build in the bottom of a valley if it floods. Don't build at the top of the hill if there are no trees around and that hill gets 100-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, there's lots of things that you've got to consider, or that your builder, if you're going to have somebody build a tiny house for you, is going to have to consider for the location that you want to place your tiny house in.
Right, which is part of the reason we have building codes, which can either be our best friend or our worst enemies.
Right.
We'll talk about getting through building codes at some point. All right.
Yep. So
what else?
I think
Are
we're
we
done.
wrapping up?
We're wrapping up for today.
Cool.
So you can find us on radiotinyhouse.com. You can find us at bethwsmith.com.
Yep.
You can find us on Facebook at My Tuff Shed Home, and at Beth's page, Tiny Houses Shed Homes on Facebook, which is a group page.
Yep.
And you can listen to the podcast on Anchor or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, a whole bunch of places. Wherever you like to listen to your podcast, you can hear us. If you want to come see us live, that would take some doing, but we'd be happy to see you.
Right. All right. Well, that's it from me.
All right. Have a great day, everybody, and we will see you next week.